My name is Colby, I'm 32, and I've built a successful photography career in Seattle despite my family's disapproval. Family gatherings always stirred mixed emotions in me, as the designated black sheep. That afternoon when I checked my mail, I found a gold-rimmed envelope addressed only to my parents. Mom's words still echo, "Amanda doesn't want any drama at her wedding. You'd just ruin her day." Sometimes rejection from those who should love you unconditionally cuts deeper than any knife. Before I tell you how this wedding drama changed my life forever, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like button. Trust me, you'll want to see how this unfolds. Growing up in suburban Chicago with my traditional family was always challenging for someone like me. From an early age, it was clear I marched to the beat of a different drum. While my dad coached Little League and my older brother dominated the football field, I was the kid who'd rather sketch the game than play in it. Art supplies were my birthday wishes, while sports equipment gathered dust in the garage. My cousin Amanda and I were actually quite close as children. Only 13 months apart, we spent summers together building elaborate sandcastles at Lake Michigan and creating treasure hunts through our grandparents' backyard. We shared an imaginative spirit back then. I still have a photo album filled with pictures of us with ice cream-smeared faces and gap-toothed grins. There was a bond there once before family expectations pulled us in different directions. Everything changed around middle school. Amanda embraced the path laid out by our family straight, as student council and the right extracurriculars that would look perfect on college applications. I still remember the proud family announcements when she made National Honor Society, when she was accepted to Northwestern, and when she landed her first corporate internship. Each achievement was celebrated at family gatherings like a national holiday. Meanwhile, my interest in photography was treated like a phase I needed to outgrow. "When are you going to get serious about your future?" became the standard greeting from relatives. My sophomore year art exhibition earned me a regional prize, but my parents didn't even attend. Dad called it my hobby show when Grandma asked about it during Sunday dinner. The constant dismissal of my passion left invisible bruises that never quite healed. By the time I turned 20, the family narrative about me was firmly established. Colby the dreamer, Colby the impractical one, Colby who just needs to grow up. When I announced my decision to move to Seattle for a photography apprenticeship instead of finishing my business degree, my mother cried as though I'd announced a terminal illness. "You're throwing your life away," she said, refusing to help pack my small apartment. My father simply shook his head and walked away, the disappointment radiating from his silence louder than any words. Seattle became my sanctuary and launching pad. Those early years were brutal, working 3 part-time jobs while building my portfolio, living on ramen noodles in a studio apartment with a leaky ceiling. But slowly, frame by frame, client by client, I built something real. By 26, I had my own studio specializing in commercial photography with a growing list of impressive clients. By 29, my work was featured in national campaigns. Yet none of that success translated to acceptance back home. Every Thanksgiving and Christmas became an exercise in emotional endurance. Aunt Patricia would inevitably ask when I was getting a real career. Uncle Robert would make jokes about starving artists while passing me the mashed potatoes. My accomplishments were minimized while Amanda's promotions and perfect relationship with her banker boyfriend James were spotlighted. Last Christmas was particularly painful. I'd just won the Pacific Northwest Commercial Photographer of the Year award, and in a moment of naive hope, I mentioned it when Grandma asked how my pictures were coming along. "That's nice, dear," my mother said, with a dismissive wave. "Did you hear Amanda and James just put a down payment on a lakefront property? Now that's something to celebrate?" The conversation immediately shifted to real estate values and investment strategies, my achievement evaporating like morning mist. Later that night, I found my award announcement that I'd printed out crumpled in the recycling bin. No one had even looked at it. Despite everything, I kept trying. Monthly phone calls to check in, birthday cards, and thoughtfully selected gifts. Occasional visits when work brought me near Chicago. I sent family members beautiful framed prints from my travels, hoping my art might finally speak the words they wouldn't hear from my mouth. "I am valuable. I am successful. I am worthy of your pride." But some family dynamics are written in stone, unchangeable, no matter the evidence to the contrary. I was the family disappointment, and nothing, not awards, not commercial success, not even my feature in Professional Photographer magazine could rewrite that narrative. I just didn't know how deeply entrenched that story was until Amanda's wedding invitation arrived. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I spotted the cream-colored envelope in my mailbox. The elegant calligraphy and gold wax seal instantly identified it as Amanda's wedding invitation. Despite our complicated relationship, a surge of excitement rushed through me. Maybe this would be the turning point, the opportunity to reconnect with family on more equal footing now that I'd established myself professionally. Back in my apartment, I made myself a cup of coffee before carefully opening the envelope. The confusion hit immediately. The invitation was addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Wright, my parents. My name was nowhere to be found, not even a +1 notation. I checked the envelope again, thinking perhaps my invitation had come separately. Nothing. I stared at the ornate card for several minutes, trying to process what this meant. Had there been a mistake? A printing error? The wedding was only 2 months away, and Amanda had been engaged for nearly a year. This couldn't be an oversight. My phone rang 30 minutes later. Seeing my mother's name on the screen, I felt a momentary relief. She must be calling to explain the mix-up. "Hi, Mom," I answered, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. "Colby, I wanted to call before you got the wrong idea about the invitation," she began, her tone already defensive. "Amanda and James are having a very specific kind of wedding, very elegant, very traditional." "I noticed my name wasn't on the invitation," I said carefully. "Was there a mistake with the printing?" The pause that followed told me everything before she even spoke. "No, honey, it wasn't a mistake. Amanda doesn't want any drama at her wedding. You'd just ruin her day with your way of being. You understand, right? It's her special day, not about you." The words landed like physical blows. My way of being. What did that even mean? I'd never caused drama at any family event. If anything, I'd become increasingly withdrawn over the years, protecting myself from the constant undercurrent of disapproval. "What drama have I ever caused?" I asked, my voice tight with hurt. "I've never done anything to embarrass the family." Mom sighed dramatically. "Remember Uncle Carl's retirement party, when you showed up with blue hair, and Jenny's graduation, when you wore those ridiculous boots, and you always insist on taking candid photos when people just want to pose normally? Amanda wants a perfect traditional wedding. Her future in-laws are very conservative people." I had to grip the kitchen counter to steady myself. The blue hair had been a temporary color spray for a themed charity event I'd attended the same day. The ridiculous boots were simply black Doc Martens, practically formal wear in Seattle. And my candid photography at family events had produced the only authentic, joyful images our family possessed. "Those aren't reasons to exclude someone from a family wedding," I said quietly. "Where's Dad? Can I talk to him?" "He's in the garage. He agrees this is for the best, Colby. We'll tell everyone you had an important work commitment. No one needs to know you weren't invited." The casual cruelty of that statement took my breath away. They were planning to lie rather than admit they'd excluded their own son. In the background, I could hear my father moving around close enough to hear the conversation, but choosing not to get involved. "I'm 32 years old," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "I run my own business. I've had work featured in national campaigns. I'm not some rebellious teenager who's going to show up with a mohawk and stage a protest." "It's not just about appearance, Colby. It's your attitude. You always have to be different, make statements. Amanda and James don't want any attention pulled away from their perfect day. You understand, right? It's not personal." "Not personal." Excluding your nephew from your wedding while inviting every other family member wasn't personal. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence before deciding to contact Amanda directly. Maybe there was some misunderstanding, or perhaps my mother was overstepping. I sent a simple text. "Hey, Amanda just got the wedding news. Congrats. There seems to be some confusion about the invitation. Can we talk?" Her response came 3 hours later. "Thanks for understanding, Colby. We're dealing with venue limitations and had to make tough decisions. Nothing personal." Venue limitations. I might have believed that if my social media scrolling hadn't revealed that distant cousins, I barely remembered my parents' neighbors, and even Amanda's former roommate's parents had all received invitations. Literally everyone connected to our family was invited except me. The final blow came that evening when my Aunt Patricia, Amanda's mother, called. Her voice was tight with artificial pleasantness. "Colby, Amanda told me you messaged her about the wedding. I just want to say don't make this about you, all right? Amanda has enough stress planning her perfect day without dealing with hurt feelings. Sometimes we have to put others first." I just sat there, phone pressed to my ear, as she continued explaining how I should be mature about the situation. When she finally paused for a response, all I could manage was, "I understand. I hope it's a beautiful day." What else could I say? After hanging up, I scrolled through Facebook again, seeing excited posts from family members about hotel bookings and outfit planning for Amanda's wedding. Comments about how the whole family will finally be together littered her engagement photo. The bitter irony was suffocating. The whole family minus one. The message couldn't have been clearer if they'd skywritten it. You don't belong. That night I lay awake until 3 in the morning, replaying every family interaction, searching for the terrible offense I must have committed to deserve such complete rejection. But the truth was dawning with painful clarity. There was no specific incident. I was simply the designated outsider, the one whose absence would make everyone else feel more comfortable in their shared normalcy. And somehow, that was even worse than having done something unforgivable. The morning after discovering my exclusion from Amanda's wedding, I called Ryan, my best friend, since my first week in Seattle. Ryan had seen me through the lowest points of my career struggles and had become more family to me than most of my blood relatives. They did. What, he exploded after I explained the situation. That's some next-level toxic family garbage, Colby, who excludes their own nephew from a wedding, and your mother's excuse is absolute trash. You'd ruin her day just by existing. That's emotional abuse, full stop. Ryan's immediate outrage was validating, but didn't ease the hollow ache spreading through my chest. I'd spent years telling myself that the distance with my family was circumstantial geography, different interests, busy schedules, but this rejection stripped away those comfortable illusions. The truth was stark and unavoidable. They didn't want me. The following weeks became a blur of emotional turbulence. At work, I found myself staring blankly at editing screens, unable to focus on client deadlines. Photos that would normally take me hours to perfect sat untouched for days. My assistant Maria began fielding more client calls, covering for my distraction, with excuses about technical problems and scheduling conflicts. "You need to talk to someone professional about this," Ryan insisted after finding me still in pajamas at 2 in the afternoon on a Saturday, surrounded by old family photos spread across my living room floor. "This isn't just going to go away." He was right. The following Monday, I made an appointment with Dr. Lindsay Chen, a therapist specializing in family trauma. Her office was a calm space with soothing blue walls and plant life thriving in every corner, the opposite of my childhood home's rigid perfection and untouchable formal rooms. Family rejection often triggers deep-rooted attachment wounds, Dr. Chen explained during our 3rd session. What's happening now isn't just about a wedding invitation. It's activating pain from every instance where you felt unseen or unwanted in your family system. Through our sessions, patterns emerged with painful clarity. My mother's backhanded compliments, my father's emotional absence, the family's collective dismissal of my achievements, while celebrating the most minor accomplishments of cousins who followed more traditional paths. Dr. Chen helped me see how I'd internalized these messages, believing on some level that I truly was less worthy, less valuable, less lovable. "What you're experiencing now is grief," she said. "Grief for the family relationship you deserved but never had. Grief for the acceptance you've been seeking your whole life." That framing helped me understand the chaotic emotions cycling through me daily. The rage that had me drafting and deleting scathing emails at 3 in the morning. The profound sadness that made even getting out of bed a monumental task. The bargaining phase where I considered apologizing for unnamed offenses just to earn my way back into family acceptance. Work continued to suffer. 6 weeks after the invitation incident, my boss Jackson called me into his office, concern evident in his furrowed brow. "The Morton account called," he said gently. "They're worried about the delays on their campaign. This isn't like you, Colby. What's going on? Something about his genuine concern cracked the professional veneer I'd been desperately maintaining. Before I could stop myself, the whole story tumbled out: the wedding exclusion, my mother's cruel words, the lifetime of never quite measuring up. Jackson, usually so business-focused, listened without interruption, his expression softening with each painful detail. I lost my relationship with my brother for similar reasons he shared after I finished. Creative black sheep syndrome. It's like families have these scripts they need everyone to follow, and when you can't or won't, they'd rather write you out than rewrite their expectations. He offered me a week off to regain my footing and connected me with a mentorship program for creative professionals that included peer support sessions. That network became instrumental in my healing process. There was Sarah, a graphic designer whose parents hadn't spoken to her since she came out as gay. Marcus, a filmmaker whose family mocked his career until his first film won at Sundance, and then suddenly wanted to claim credit for his success. Dozens of creative souls who understood the specific pain of family rejection for choosing an authentic path over a prescribed one. Online communities expanded this support system further. I discovered forums filled with stories so similar to mine that they could have been written by different versions of myself. Scapegoat children. They called us the family members designated to carry blame, to be the example of what not to do, to make everyone else feel better about themselves by comparison. Through therapy and these connections, something began to shift in me. The desperate need for family approval that had driven so many of my choices began to loosen its grip. I started to see that I had been seeking validation from people fundamentally incapable of providing it, not because of my failures, but because of their limitations. What if Dr. Chen suggested during a breakthrough session, you responded to this exclusion, not with anger or pleading, but with genuine grace? Not for them, but for your own healing. That question sparked a radical idea. After careful consideration, I selected one of my finest landscape photographs, a breathtaking sunrise over Mount Rainier that had won regional recognition, had it professionally framed and shipped it to Amanda with a simple note, wishing you and James a lifetime of joy and beautiful horizons. Love, Colby. It wasn't a strategic move to make them feel guilty. It was a declaration of who I was choosing to be, someone who wouldn't allow others' limitations to dictate my character or worth. For perhaps the first time, I wasn't sending my art as a plea for validation, but as a statement of my own values. Whether they appreciated it or not no longer determined its worth or mine. The morning of Amanda's wedding arrived with painful awareness. While I'd made progress in therapy, calendar dates have a way of sharpening emotional edges. Knowing that across the country my entire family was gathering without me sent a fresh wave of grief washing over me. Ryan, true to his unwavering support, had organized what he called an anti-pity party with our friend group. "We're not letting you sit around scrolling through social media and torturing yourself," he announced, appearing at my door at 7:30 in the morning with coffee and a backpack full of camera gear. "We're going to Mount Rainier, day-long photo expedition. Maria's handling your email. No excuses." The distraction strategy was well-intentioned, and I made a genuine effort to engage with the spectacular landscapes we encountered throughout the morning. Photography had always been my refuge, the place where I felt most authentic and capable. Yet even as I adjusted settings and composed shots of alpine meadows bursting with wildflowers, my mind kept drifting back to Chicago. Were they taking family photos now? Was my absence even noticed? Had my gift arrived? And if so, what was their reaction? By mid-afternoon, we'd reached a remote beach area with a stunning view of the mountain reflected in crystal-clear water. While the others unpacked our picnic lunch, I wandered down to the shoreline, camera hanging unused around my neck. The beauty surrounding me seemed to amplify rather than diminish my sadness. This was exactly the kind of moment I'd always tried to capture for my family, to share the way I saw the world, to connect through the beauty I found, and they had never wanted to see. The weight of that rejection finally broke through the careful compartmentalization I'd been maintaining. Sinking onto a driftwood log, I felt the first tears escape, then more, until I was sobbing openly, face buried in my hands. It was the first time I'd fully surrendered to the grief since the invitation incident. Ryan found me there minutes later, saying nothing as he sat beside me, his steady hand on my shoulder, anchoring me through the storm of emotion. I keep trying to understand, I finally managed between ragged breaths. What's so wrong with me that my own family can't stand? Having me at important events, what did I ever do except be myself? Nothing, Ryan said firmly. You did nothing wrong, Colby. Some families just can't tolerate anyone who challenges their narrow definition of success or acceptability. It's not about you being defective. It's about them being unable to celebrate diversity within their own family, and that's their loss. A massive, tragic loss. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in dramatic oranges and pinks, I pulled out my phone despite my better judgment. Instagram was flooded with wedding updates, my parents looking stiff but proud in formal wear distant relatives. I barely remembered posing at elegantly decorated tables, Amanda radiant in her designer gown. Not a single text or call from anyone there, not even a performative wish you could be here. Just as I was about to put my phone away, it rang with an unknown Chicago area code. Stepping away from the group, I answered cautiously. Colby, it's Jamie, your cousin Uncle Paul's youngest. Jamie was barely 20, a college sophomore I'd only met a handful of times at family gatherings. What could she possibly want on Amanda's wedding day? I left the reception early, she said, her voice low, as if hiding from someone. I couldn't stay after what I heard. It's not right how they're treating you. My heart began pounding harder. What do you mean? What did you hear? People kept asking where you were. Your mom kept saying you had this huge photography assignment you couldn't reschedule. But then, at the rehearsal dinner last night, after a few drinks, Aunt Patricia was telling some of the aunts the real story, how they deliberately didn't invite you because you're too alternative and might take attention away from Amanda. The confirmation of my worst fears should have devastated me. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. There was almost relief in having the unspoken truth finally spoken. There's more, Jamie continued. Your mom didn't even defend you. She just nodded along and added something about how you've always had to be the center of attention, and this was Amanda's day. Jamie's voice cracked slightly. It's complete bullshit, Colby. I've seen your work online. You're insanely talented. And in all the family gatherings I can remember, you were always the quiet one, taking beautiful photos that made everyone look better than they actually are. The genuine outrage in this barely adult cousin's voice for my sake broke through my emotional numbness. Someone in my family actually saw me. Someone recognized the injustice. Your gift arrived this morning, Jamie added. That photograph is absolutely stunning. Amanda opened it before the ceremony and just set it aside without really looking at it. But I looked it up online afterward. It was in that gallery exhibition in Portland last year, wasn't it? It's museum-quality work, Colby. After we hung up, I rejoined my friends with a strange new energy coursing through me. The conversation with Jamie had shifted something fundamental. For years, I'd been fighting to be seen by people determined not to see me. I'd been seeking approval from those incapable of offering it. I'd been trying to belong in a place where I was never meant to fit. For the first time, I truly understood that their rejection wasn't my failure, it was their limitation. And in that understanding came the first genuine seeds of freedom. The morning after Amanda's wedding, I woke with unusual clarity despite a night of restless sleep. Where grief and confusion had clouded my thoughts for weeks, I now felt an almost eerie sense of purpose. During my regular therapy session that afternoon, Dr. Chen noticed the shift immediately. You seem different today, she observed, as I settled into the now familiar blue armchair in her office. I think I've been asking the wrong question all along, I replied. I've been asking why they can't accept me, why I'm not good enough for them. But the real question is, why am I still seeking validation from people who have shown me repeatedly they're incapable of providing it? Dr. Chen's smile was subtle but affirming. That's a significant reframing, Colby. What brought you to this insight? I told her about the beach breakdown, Jamie's revelations, and the strange peace that followed. It's like I've been knocking on a door my entire life, bloodying my knuckles, begging to be let in. And I just realized I don't even want to enter that room anymore. There are better places I could be. That's not just an insight, she said. That's a breakthrough. The question now becomes, where do you want to direct all that energy you've been using to seek their approval? That question lingered as I left her office and walked through the city streets, seeing Seattle with fresh eyes. This place had welcomed me when my own family wouldn't. Here I'd built a career friendships, a community that appreciated me exactly as I was. What if instead of mourning what I didn't have, I celebrated what I'd created? The idea took root and grew rapidly. By evening, I was filling a notebook with concepts, sketching out a vision that made my heart race with excitement rather than anxiety. The next morning, I called Ryan. "I want to create an event," I said, without preamble. "A celebration of chosen family. Something beautiful and meaningful at that beach where I broke down. I need your help." Ryan, ever supportive, arrived at my apartment that evening with takeout and his own notebook. "Tell me everything," he said, settling onto my couch. The concept poured out of me, a ceremony celebrating authentic connections and chosen family bonds. Not a mock wedding, but something entirely different. A gathering that honored the relationships that sustain us when biological ties fail. A visual and emotional counterpoint to the rejection I'd experienced. We could involve the whole creative community, I explained, pacing with growing enthusiasm. All the people who've supported each other when their families couldn't or wouldn't. We could create something visually stunning that represents what real acceptance looks like. "This is brilliant," Ryan said already, making lists of contacts, and completely on brand for you, taking pain and transforming it into something beautiful. The exact opposite of what your family accused you of. Over the following days, the plan evolved from concept to reality, with surprising momentum. A client who owned a stunning beachfront property offered it as a venue when I explained the project. Industry, contacts, volunteered services, a high-end caterer offered to provide food at cost. A florist friend promised arrangements, and several photographer colleagues volunteered to document the event so I could be fully present in the COSIS. Experience. We set the date for exactly 1 month after Amanda's wedding, a deliberate choice that felt like reclaiming the narrative. Invitations designed by a graphic designer friend emphasized the theme, celebrating the family we choose. We sent them to everyone who had supported me through my career struggles and recent family pain, along with others in our creative community with similar experiences of family rejection. The response was overwhelming. Nearly 50 people immediately confirmed attendance, many adding heartfelt notes about what the concept meant to them. Some shared their own stories of family estrangement, creating a tapestry of shared experience that affirmed the importance of what we were creating. Ryan suggested we document the planning process from my professional social media accounts. "This isn't just personally meaningful, Colby. It's a powerful statement about redefining family and belonging. People need to see this." Initially hesitant to share something so personal, I eventually agreed. The first post, a thoughtful explanation of the project alongside a striking image of empty chairs arranged in a circle on the beach, received an unexpected flood of engagement. Comments poured in from around the world, people sharing their own experiences of family rejection and the healing they'd found in chosen connections. "You need to make this a video series," Maria insisted after seeing the response. "This is resonating with people far beyond our immediate circle. It's tapping into something universal." With her help, I began creating short, artfully shot videos documenting the journey from exclusion to celebration. Each step of the planning process became part of a larger narrative about healing community and redefining belonging on one's own terms. The project became therapeutic in ways therapy alone couldn't achieve. Each decision, from the circular seating arrangement, symbolizing equality, to the handfasting elements borrowed from various cultural traditions, felt like reclaiming pieces of myself that family rejection had fragmented. I was no longer asking for a place at someone else's table. I was building my own and inviting those who truly saw and valued me. 2 weeks before the event, an unexpected email arrived from a major online publication requesting an interview about the project, which had begun gaining traction beyond my immediate social media following. The interviewer asked thoughtful questions about chosen family, the impact of rejection, and the power of creative response to pain. "Do you worry your family will see this and feel targeted?" she asked toward the end of our conversation. This isn't about them anymore. I replied with a certainty that surprised even me. It's about creating something beautiful from pain, about showing others experiencing similar rejection that they're not alone. It's about redefining family on more authentic terms. That quote became the headline when the article published 3 days later, bringing a new wave of attention and support. Messages arrived from strangers sharing how the project had inspired them to heal their own family wounds or celebrate their chosen connections. What had begun as personal healing was expanding into something much larger than myself. The night before the ceremony, standing on the beach where the event would take place, I called Jamie to thank her again for her courage in reaching out on the wedding day. "I wanted to personally invite you," I told her. "I understand if it's complicated with the family, but—" "I'll be there," she interrupted without hesitation. "What they did to you was wrong, Colby. And honestly, seeing how you've responded to it has made me braver about my own path. I've been afraid to tell them I want to study art instead of the business degree they expect, watching you create something beautiful from their rejection instead of being destroyed by it. It's changing how I see everything." As the sun set on the eve of the ceremony, I felt a profound sense of gratitude replace the ache that had dominated my emotional landscape for so long. What had begun as the deepest rejection had catalyzed an unexpected gift, the freedom to define family belonging and worthiness on my own terms. The morning of the ceremony arrived with ominous clouds threatening the carefully planned outdoor event. By 6:30, I was already at the beach location, anxiously checking weather apps and exchanging concerned texts with Ryan. "The forecast shows it clearing by 10, he assured me, but the heavy gray sky overhead told a different story. As if sensing my distress, the universe decided to add a light drizzle to my anxiety. "We have the backup tent," Maria reminded me as she arrived with coffee and pastries for the setup crew, "but I really think this will pass." Amazingly, she was right. By 9:15, the clouds began breaking apart, revealing patches of brilliant blue. By the time our first guests arrived at 11, sunshine bathed the beach setting in golden light, so perfect it looked artificially enhanced in photographs. The dramatic clouds lingering on the horizon only added depth and character to the scene. The setting itself was breathtaking. A circle of elegant chairs surrounded a center space, adorned with a spectacular floral installation that seemed to grow organically from the sand. Flowing fabric in shades of blue and green created an aisle leading to a driftwood arch decorated with native wildflowers and sea glass. The ocean provided a constant soothing soundtrack as people began to arrive. The guest list had expanded to nearly 70 people, friends, colleagues, mentors, and clients, who had become genuine connections over the years. Everyone arrived in attire that perfectly expressed their authentic selves, rather than adhering to any dress code. The resulting visual tapestry of personal expression created exactly the atmosphere I'd hoped for: celebration of individuality within community. At 11:45, I spotted Jamie nervously approaching, looking over her shoulder as if expecting family repercussions to materialize behind her. When she saw me, her face lit up with a genuine smile that erased any doubt about her belonging in this space. "I told my parents I was going to a college friends gathering," she confessed as we hugged. "I hate lying, but I needed to be here. This is important." The ceremony began at noon, with everyone taking their places in the circle. Ryan opened with a welcome that immediately set the tone. "We're gathered today to celebrate chosen family," he began. "The people who see us, support us, and love us for exactly who we are, not who they wish we would be. We're here to honor authentic connection and to recognize that family is defined by love and acceptance, not simply by blood." Different friends took turns speaking about their experiences, finding belonging outside traditional family structures. Marcus shared how his filmmaking community became his true home after rejection. Sarah spoke about rebuilding her sense of worth through meaningful friendships after her parents' rejection. Each story wove into the larger narrative we were creating together. When my turn came, I stepped into the center of the circle, momentarily overwhelmed by the supportive faces surrounding me. A few months ago, I was excluded from a family wedding. I began my voice steadier than I expected. The rejection reopened wounds I'd been carrying since childhood, the pain of never quite being good enough, never fitting the mold my family had designed. For weeks, I let that rejection define me, diminish me, convince me of my unworthiness. Looking around the circle, I continued. But then I looked at the people who actually show up for me, who celebrate my successes and support me through failures, who love me not despite my differences, but because of them, and I realized that I've been extraordinarily fortunate because I have all of you. The emotion in the circle was palpable, as I concluded. Today isn't about replacing one type of family with another, or about rejecting those who rejected me. It's about expanding our understanding of belonging and celebrating the authentic connections that truly sustain us. It's about recognizing that sometimes the family that matters most is the one we build for ourselves intentionally and with love. The ceremony continued with elements borrowed from various cultural traditions, a hand-fasting ritual symbolizing the ties that bind by choice rather than obligation, a community pledge of support, and an exchange of small tokens representing meaningful moments shared. Throughout it all, photographer friends captured everything from dramatic wide shots, showcasing the breathtaking setting, to intimate close-ups of tearful smiles and clasped hands. The gathering transitioned seamlessly into a celebratory reception with food, music, and genuine connection. What struck me most throughout the day was the authenticity of every interaction. There were no obligatory conversations, no strained politeness, no performance of familial bonds that didn't exist. Every person there had chosen to be present, chosen to celebrate this redefinition of belonging. Jamie, initially shy among strangers, gradually bloomed in this atmosphere of acceptance. I watched her deep in conversation with several of my artist friends, her expression animated as she shared her portfolio on her phone, and received genuine encouragement rather than the dismissal she expected from family. "This is how it's supposed to feel," she told me later, her eyes bright with realization. "Being around people who actually want to know who you really are instead of trying to mold you into someone else." As the celebration continued into evening, my photographer friends began showing me preview images on their cameras, stunning shots capturing the beauty, emotion, and connection of the day. With their permission, I selected a few to share on my professional accounts before the sun had even set on the gathering. The response was immediate and overwhelming. By the time the last guests departed around 9 that evening, the initial posts had received thousands of engagements, far beyond my typical professional reach. Comments flooded in from around the world, people deeply moved by both the visual beauty and the emotional significance of what we'd created. I fell into exhausted sleep that night with my phone still pinging with notifications. When I woke the next morning, it took several minutes to comprehend what had happened overnight. The posts had gone genuinely viral, shared across multiple platforms by influencers with massive followings. Major wedding blogs had picked up the story, framing it as a revolutionary approach to celebrating authentic connection. My follower count had tripled, and my inbox overflowed with messages. Among the most moving were hundreds of personal stories from strangers, sharing their own experiences of family rejection and how seeing our ceremony had affected them. Some wrote about feeling seen for the first time. Others shared how it inspired them to plan similar celebrations of their chosen families. Many expressed gratitude for showing that rejection could be a catalyst for something beautiful rather than an endpoint. By midday, interview requests began arriving from podcasts, online publications, and even a national morning show. A prestigious photography magazine requested an exclusive feature on the images. A major wedding publication wanted to do a spread on the redemption ceremony, as people had begun calling it. The most unexpected development came 3 days after the ceremony. A creative director for a major clothing brand reached out about featuring the concept in their upcoming campaign centered on authenticity and belonging. The offer included using our actual ceremony images and hiring me as the photographer for the broader campaign, my largest commercial opportunity to date. What had begun as a personal healing journey was transforming into a professional turning point. The pain that had nearly derailed my career was now catapulting it to new heights. The irony wasn't lost on me. My family had excluded me for fear I'd take attention away from their perfect day, and that very exclusion had resulted in my receiving more positive attention than I could have imagined. But the professional opportunities, while welcome, felt secondary to the deeper impact. Every day brought new messages from people finding courage in our example, healing through our story, creating their own celebrations of chosen family. The viral attention wasn't just about pretty pictures or an inspirational story, it was touching a collective wound, many carried silently, and offering a vision of healing that resonated far beyond my personal experience. 1 week after the ceremony, as I sat in a coffee shop preparing for my 4th interview of the day, my phone displayed an incoming call from a number I immediately recognized. My mother was calling for the first time since our devastating conversation about the wedding invitation. For several seconds I stared at my mother's name on the screen, a storm of emotions swirling through me. With a deep breath, I answered. "Hello, Mom." "Colby." Her voice sounded strained, unfamiliar. "We need to talk about what you've done. Not how are you, not I miss you, not I'm sorry." My stomach tightened, but something had fundamentally shifted in me. The desperate need for her approval had been replaced by a steady sense of my own worth. "What I've done?" I kept my tone neutral. "This event you put on the internet. Everyone is talking about it. Your Aunt Patricia is beside herself. Amanda feels like you deliberately tried to overshadow her wedding." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "Mom, I held a private ceremony celebrating friendship and chosen family. I didn't invite media or seek publicity. That people connected with it wasn't something I planned or controlled. But you put it online. You knew family would see it. I'm a professional photographer. Sharing visual stories is my job." I paused, then added gently, "And honestly, I didn't think any of you followed my work." The silence that followed confirmed my suspicion. None of them had bothered to follow my professional accounts until the viral attention forced their awareness. "Your father and I are very hurt," she finally said. "Making a public spectacle about not being invited to Amanda's wedding, airing family business for the world. That's not how we raised you." The old Colby would have apologized, would have scrambled to smooth things over. But therapy and the profound experience of the ceremony had changed me. "Mom, nowhere in anything I've shared have I mentioned names, pointed fingers, or exposed family business. I shared my personal journey from rejection to creating meaningful connection. That's my story to tell." "Well, it feels very targeted." "I can understand why it might feel that way to you," I replied, using language Dr. Chen had helped me practice. But this wasn't about retaliation. It was about healing and creating something positive from pain. Our conversation continued in circles, my mother unable or unwilling to acknowledge any responsibility. I maintained calm boundaries throughout, neither attacking nor capitulating. When we finally hung up, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and relief. The conversation confirmed what I already knew: genuine reconciliation would require acknowledgement and accountability that she wasn't capable of offering. 2 days later, Amanda sent a text. "Your event looked beautiful. Wish you could have channeled that creativity to support my special day instead of creating drama." The passive-aggressive message revealed she still didn't understand or didn't want to understand the situation from my perspective. I simply responded, "Thank you. I hope married life is bringing you joy," and left it at that. These interactions reinforced my decision to maintain limited contact moving forward, not cutting ties completely, but creating healthy distance and boundaries that protected my well-being. I declined holiday invitations that year, sending thoughtful gifts instead. When family members called, I kept conversations brief and redirected personal questions. It wasn't punitive, it was protective. Meanwhile, my professional life flourished in unexpected ways. The viral attention translated into concrete opportunities: a prestigious gallery exhibition featuring images from the ceremony alongside a narrative installation about chosen family, speaking engagements at photography conferences about visual storytelling and authentic representation, and a significant increase in high-profile commercial clients who appreciated the emotional depth of my work. Most meaningful was the community that formed in the aftermath. What began as a one-time ceremony evolved into regular gatherings for those creating family outside traditional structures. We developed workshops combining photography and therapeutic practices to help others document and celebrate their chosen connections. These authentic family workshops began in Seattle but expanded to other cities as demand grew. The 1-year anniversary of Amanda's wedding arrived with much less emotional weight than I anticipated. I spent the day leading a photography retreat for young adults estranged from their families, helping them use visual storytelling as a healing tool. The profound moments of connection and growth I witnessed that day underscored how dramatically my life had changed direction. That evening, Jamie called with exciting news. She had finally told her parents she was changing her major to fine arts despite their objections. "They're not happy," she admitted, "but watching you stand in your truth gave me courage to stand in mine. Even if they never understand, I know I'm making the right choice for me." Her words reflected my own journey perfectly. The painful exclusion that once threatened to break me had ultimately freed me from seeking validation where it couldn't be found, from contorting myself to fit others' expectations, from believing my worth was determined by those unwilling to see me clearly. 2 years after the wedding incident, I found myself back at that same beach at sunset, this time with Ryan and my partner Thomas, whom I'd met through one of our community events. Thomas, with his own history of family complexity, understood the journey I'd traveled in a way few others could. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked as we walked along the shore. "Creating such a public response to your family's rejection?" I considered the question carefully before answering. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my family couldn't accept me as I am. But I don't regret transforming that pain into something meaningful. That ceremony gave me back pieces of myself I'd surrendered trying to earn their approval." Ryan nodded in agreement. "It's like you alchemized rejection into gold, not just for yourself but for thousands of others trying to heal similar wounds." That metaphor captured the essence of what I'd learned. Pain itself isn't transformative. It's what we choose to create from it that determines its lasting impact. My family's rejection could have diminished me permanently. Instead, it catalyzed a journey toward authentic selfhood and meaningful connection that expanded far beyond my individual experience. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors as we stood on that significant shoreline. This place that had once witnessed my deepest breakdown now represented my most profound breakthrough. The contrast wasn't lost on me, how our greatest pain points can become our most powerful turning points when we respond with creativity rather than bitterness, with openness rather than withdrawal. I took a photograph of that sunset, not for social media or professional purposes, but simply to commemorate the moment. Looking at the image later, I realized it captured everything I now understood about healing. There is beauty after darkness, connection after rejection, peace after pain, not because the hurt magically disappears, but because we learn to build something meaningful alongside it. If you're watching this and struggling with family rejection or feeling like you don't belong, please know you're not alone. Your worth isn't determined by those who cannot see you clearly. Have you ever had to create your own sense of belonging when traditional family connections failed? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that rejection can sometimes be the beginning of a beautiful new chapter, rather than the end of their story. Thank you for witnessing my journey, and I wish you the courage to create authentic connection wherever you find it.